Hey guys, welcome back. The sound is already really on fire. I was out fishing over the weekend with a couple customers and we landed, I don't know how many fish, but the fishing's outstanding. So today I wanted to take a few minutes and talk with you about line selection and how line selection impacts our day on the water. So let's get right into it. As a Puget Sound fly fisherman, when I'm targeting sea run cutthroat, I need to, well, really, regardless of what I'm doing as a fly fisherman, I need to understand that in fly fishing, the line catches the fish more than any other piece of equipment. So I want to pick a line that's going to be an answer to as many of my angling needs as I can. As it relates to fly fishing the Sound, I have the needs that I have for my line to address are I need as an angler a line that's going to help me cast far. I need to cast as far as I can every single cast pretty much, and I'm doing that all day long repetitively. So I want a line that not only can cast far, but that can help me cast far in the fewest number of casts, false casts each presentation. Secondly, because the trout live on the bottom, and I need a line that's going to get down, not necessarily on the bottom, but I need it to get down under the water, maybe halfway to the bottom, however deep I may be fishing. They will certainly come to the surface, but for today, we're just going to be talking about fishing on the bottom because that's mainly what I do and where most of the fish are caught. Okay, so when sinking lines, we're talking about sinking lines. As we understand sinking lines, if I say to you I'm fishing an intermediate line, you're assuming that, and I'm assuming that the line intermediate means it sinks on the box an inch or two a second. If I say I'm fishing a full sink, the standard full sink is type 6, meaning it's going to sink like 5 or so inches a second. If I, type 3, it sinks 3 inches or so, 4 inches a second, so on and so forth. How we conceive of that, though, is just a uniform piece of line in fresh, still water. You have a section of it, say it's intermediate, and you lay it down on the water and you just calculate how fast that sinks. Well, that's not how we fish. So the sink rate on the box doesn't really match the sink rate that one is going to experience on the water, especially when it's salt water and either the water's moving or the boat's moving a little bit. So when it comes to fishing for cutthroat on the Sound from the boat, right in the beginning, I want to just kind of get this out of the way. One line I don't use is the intermediate family of lines. I don't use them because they don't sink fast enough on their own to keep me in the zone throughout the whole retrieve. When I say the zone, I mean like the fish striking zone. Intermediates are really useful for maybe the first 5 or 10 feet of shoreline, but as the chase continues, they keep the fly too high in the water column. Especially fly lines that are useful for the Sound. Talking about distance, there's a problem with sinking lines in that they're thin so that they can sink, right? And they're coated with a dense powder underneath, the final coating, and it gives them a texture. The thinness and the texture results in that they're not easy to cast distance. A full sinking line isn't really easy to cast a great distance. So there are shooting heads. A shooting head is a line that's, in our case, sinking also, like a full sinking line, but it's different in that it's sectional. It has a long section of really thin intermediate line, and then a short section of, in the case of what I use for Cuddies on the Sound, like 26 to 30 feet, depending on the line of Type 6. And you're only trying to carry that Type 6 section called the head. And I'm talking about an integrated shooting line, so that if I can carry, just the 30 feet of Type 6 head and maybe a few feet of the running line, then I will be able to shoot a lot farther in one more cast. Because what would have been, the grain weight that's normally distributed in 45 feet of line has been condensed into that 26 feet of line. So it has the mass, if I'm carrying 30 feet of it, now I'm carrying really 50 feet of mass, so I can go from 50 feet of mass that can pull out enough running line that with a good double haul, the final cast goes from I'm carrying 30 out to 80 in one cast. So full sinking lines and classic intermediate lines, that are not integrated shooting heads, they're not the greatest to cast at long distance. So they do solve the problem of getting down, other than the intermediate, but they don't solve the problem of distance. Another thing to consider, that I consider, and another reason that I prefer shooting heads, sinking shooting head, or shooting heads specifically when I'm fishing under the water, when I'm fishing wet water streamers in the Sound, is a characteristic of fly lines that I've observed both working in the fly shop and working as a guide on the water. Fly lines have this, all sinking fly lines have this phenomena, exhibit this phenomena called what I have come to call dive shape, which is, if I take a line, any sinking line, and I cast it out there, and I just put my tip on the water, each line type is going to assume a particular shape as it dives. And this shape is particular to the different, each family type of line. And I've noticed that it impacts how flies fish. So instead of a piece of paper, I've got this whiteboard here today. And I want to talk for a few minutes about dive shape and how it relates to line selection in the Sound. Let's say that this is super simple. Again, I'm not an artist, so you're going to deal with it. This is a fly here. This is just some fluorocarbon leader that you can't see because it's invisible underwater. You like how I did that? This is a full sinking line. So imagine I'm fishing a full sinking line, and in this drawing here, the lines, I've already cast out. That's the fly rod. The boat's over here. This is the bottom. The shore is way over there. I've cast out. The fly's here. And so full sinking line, the entire line wants to sink, I know that you know this, at the same rate. And it is in fact designed to end up vertically. Vertical from the rod tip. So, if you're fishing a chironomid deep, or if you're just having a vertical presentation, which is useful in many different settings, the full sinking line is actually going to give you a really good direct connection to that. but on its way down, it's sinking, and it starts to assume this particular shape. Well, this particular dive shape, and full sinking lines exhibit what I call a negative dive shape, in that as the fly is sinking down, right? So there's an obvious, the fly and the line are sinking down. The line is sinking down faster than the fly, but because it's attached to the surface, to the rod at the surface, that prevents this end from not only going down, but it also introduces a lateral tension to the fly, to the line, the distal end of the fly line is pulled, and the fly are pulled this way, which results in this pendulum shape where the fly sinks boop, 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 like this. As I'm stripping it in, now that's the fly would sink like this if I'm not stripping it in. I am in fact stripping it in as I'm fishing for cutties. So these forces are still here, right? There's this negative belly that's created though if I'm pulling it in. There's, this straight line, kind of straight-ish, from the tip of the line to the fly rod. Every time I strip the fly, I tighten this up. This bow, this belly comes up. So as I strip, boom, I'm mitigating that belly. But as I recover in my strip, that belly is like induced again. So there's this, I call it a negative dive shape, because no matter what I do in the retrieve, I cannot get this belly out. It's always there. Now it's tight, okay? I have it under motion, like it's under tension because I'm stripping it back in, but even a little bit of belly is going to soften my hook set so that I can feel the take. But as it pertains to coastal cutthroat, most of the time the fish that's pursuing the fly he's actually going faster than the fly is going. He's going faster than you're retrieving it. So as he hits the fly, this belly insulates you and he from one another. He's hitting it, you can feel it, but your hook set isn't sharply felt by him, and it's not penetrative enough to really to hold on tight, because this belly in the strongest part of your hook set, just boom, the pull, the strip and the pull, the strip, instead of piercing the fly instead of piercing the hook into his mouth and setting it, it's stripping the slack out so that the set is really this. But this motion is really intended to be the cushion so that the fish can shake its head and you have maintained tension. So although the full sinking fly line gets you into the zone, the negative belly that it introduces in the fast style retrieve that you need for cutthroat and shallow water makes it so that you get bites and you hook fish, but you don't really get good setups. And the fly is always being led down until it's right at the bottom and it comes sharply up. Very difficult to maintain a direct line connection with a full sinking line at distance, stripping the fly fast. Okay, let's compare that to the dive shape and the retrieve of an integrated shooting head with differentiated density zones. Okay, what does that even mean? Who knows? Let me take a second to draw this out. All right, so we've got the fly rod again here. Am I on here? Yeah, we're good. With the fly rod, boop, boop, boop. This time though, we have intermediate running line. So the intermediate running line just kind of wants to sit here. And the full sinking head attached to it is pulling the fly. Boop. There we go. Okay, that green might be a little hard to see, but whatever. Okay, in the integrated shooting line setup, this is one fly line, but this last 26 feet of type 6 is where almost all the fishing mass is. This has more mass than all of this. Okay, so it sinks in that it's a much higher density. It wants to sink first and quickest. So it's going to sink much quicker than the intermediate line. Now, it's not going to get down as deep as the full sinking line, but fortunately for you and I as fly fishermen, it does introduce an overall positive but much more neutral dive shape, and it has what I have come to call, and explaining it to people, a diving pillow. Okay, so this positive dive shape, I call it positive obviously because the main bell of the dive shape is above the straight line from the tip of the rod to the fly. The intermediate fly line resists a little bit the sinking of the type 6 head, okay, and it's slower, so that when your very first strip is going to come pull this positive arc, this pillow is going to pull it straight, and it's going to come tight, and then from that moment on, you are going to be straight in line here from the back of this all the way to the fly rod. You are going to get some dip, some of this belly here in between your strips on your retrieve, but it's minimal because it's only 26 feet of type 6. It's not the entire line. Furthermore, the pillow is this little curve here, whoop, this kind of almost like you put like a big pillow. It's always there, and it's always resisting this part, this sink rate here, this kind of union from really fast to kind of slow. Always slows down this head so that the fly itself is most often the deepest part of the presentation. So not only do I get a better straight line connection in my retrieve because of my positive dive shape, but I also have more control cast to cast and retrieve to retrieve on how deep the fly stays when I'm fishing it, because of the density differentiated zones in the construction of the fly line itself. Integrated shooting heads result in more fish hookups than any other kind of line on my boat. Okay, it's not by any means perfect. You're still going to, they're still moving, they're still going to take the fly at a higher speed than you're retrieving it, and you're still going to miss a number of strikes and all that. But this system, the integrated shooting head, intermediate running line, type 6 shooting head, it in my experience, it is the number one choice for kind of all my general work in the sound. This is the one that I use here, the Cortland Compact Sync Type 6. I think in the 6.7 it's 240 grains, it's 100 feet long, and as I was saying, it's it's got all that running line, a little 12-foot step, 2-foot rear taper, 23-foot body, and a 3-foot front taper. It's very aggressive, it's very easy to cast, it's gonna get your fly down into the zone, and in my opinion, it is the fishiest line that I've come across when targeting cuts on the sound on the fly. See you guys, thanks. Hope it helps.